Hi, this is Gail Purith, and I want to share a devotion called Four Types of People God Tells Us to Avoid. Now, God warns us against snobbery and bigotry. These are based on externals, but He commands us to avoid four types of people. The first are bad influences, and 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, "Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character." This doesn't mean that we avoid difficult people or non Christians. It means we choose our friends wisely and avoid people who pressure us to sin. Our very closest friends should be Christians who hold similar values. Another type of people God tells us to avoid is false teachers. 2 John 1:10 says, "If anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching," which was the accurate teaching of Scripture, "do not take them into your house or welcome them." A third type of people that God tells us to avoid are professing Christians with sinful lifestyles. 1 Corinthians 5:11 says, "You must not associate with anyone who claims to be a brother or sister, but is sexually immoral or greedy, an idolater, a slanderer, a drunkard, or a swindler." This chapter in 1 Corinthians 5, discusses church discipline of a man living an immoral lifestyle. This does not mean that we avoid believers who sin. We all sin. It means that we avoid Christians who are living sinful lifestyles. The fourth type of people that God tells us to avoid are divisive people in the church. This is Titus 3:9-11. "Do not get involved in foolish discussions about spiritual pedigrees or in quarrels and fights about obedience to Jewish laws. These things are useless and a waste of time. If people are causing divisions among you, give them a first and second warning. After that, have nothing to do with them. For people like that have turned away from the truth, and their own sins condemn them." This passage warns us to avoid people who want to create factions in the church, engaging people in foolish arguments. It's interesting that fights about obedience to Jewish laws is specifically mentioned because we now have groups of people called the Hebrew Roots Movement who are trying to tell Christians, modern day Christians, that we need to be obeying Jewish laws. Avoiding bad influences, though, doesn't mean that we avoid difficult and annoying family members. God placed us in our family, and we need to learn patience and humility and good people skills. Romans 12:14-21 gives us some good advice about that. And God especially warns us to be careful to honor our parents. So, we shouldn't avoid non-Christians and we shouldn't avoid annoying family members, but we're called to share Christ in positive ways and to avoid people who cause us to sin.